It's early September. The day begins like every other. The school bus makes its way down the hill and in the front of her house. And she takes 4 big steps up and turns to face her day. And for most kids, this is a simple thing of a ride to school. But not for her. For her, it's the start of the relentless questions she'll be asking herself today.
Are they looking at me? If so, what are they looking at? Did I wear the same shirt as yesterday? Is there something in my teeth? Or is my hair sticking up all over the place? If they aren't looking at me, why not? Do they not notice me? Am I invisible to them?
And probably the worst question,
Do I even matter?
all of this before she even takes her seat. And that decision can have lasting and far-reaching effects, so it must be made very carefully. She scans the bus from left to right, front to back, weighing all her options.
Nope, can't sit there.
As she spots a girl thumbing her phone out the corner of her eye.
We got in a fight yesterday. I don't even know if we're even still friends. Not that seat. Nope, that one's definitely out of the question. Everyone thinks we're going out. And we are definitely not going out. But what about that one? No. If I sit by a seat all by myself, I'll look like a loner. Or even stuck up and I don't want to sit next to anyone. Oh, why does life have to be so hard?
After what seems like an eternity, she chooses her seat and thinks,
God, I hope it's the right one.
The bus turns the last corner and the middle school is in sight. Her heart begins to race and palms grow cold and sweaty. After barely surviving yet another trip to school, she enters the hall of her middle school and makes her way through the corridor, and down a set of stairs, and around the corner. She has bright purple dyed hair, colorful fingernails, and a stylish wardrobe. By herself, she would make quite the impression on a standard middle-class middle school. But in this sea of kids, all trying to find their place in this world, trying to fit in, while simultaneously trying to be unique and different, she is just one of many. Wading through the hundreds of kids and busy teachers, all making their way to where they need to be, she finally reaches her destination, her locker. It's the bottom one of a double-decker pair. She kneels down and pulls out a letter that she's been working on. Just then, a friend passes by, looks over her shoulder, and reads what she has written. September 9th, 2015. I get to be free. Finally. Away from everyone. Away from my life. Dead. My lifeless body on the ground 21 days until my suicide. The best day of my entire life. If it goes right, hopefully, I'm going to be free. I'm excited. I wonder who will care. Would some cry? I know no one will cry, but only shocked. I miss you, but I know you don't miss me. I have the solution. My suicide mission. I get to leave my hell we all call world. I'm gonna die. Yay. My life is worthless anyway. Kill me. September 30th. A tragic story by anyone's standards. But what do I know about teenage girls? What do I know about suicidal teenage girls? Nothing, that's what. As a combat veteran and veteran mentor, I am not new to suicide. In fact, suicide is overrepresented amongst the veteran population compared to its civilian counterpart. Annual number of suicides per 100,000 population from 2000 to 2010. Women who have never served in the military is 5.2. Their women counterparts that have served in uniform is 28.7. Men that have never served in the military is 20.9, whereas their veteran and active duty service members is 32.1. Veteran suicide. I understand.
I've been to that dark place. 2010. I didn't know what was going on in my life.
That's Kevin Fairbanks. Air Force veteran, husband and father.
81 north from Cortland to Syracuse, there's always tractor-trailer traffic.
He was traveling to Syracuse, New York, looking for the right opportunity.
I took my daughter home, dropped her off to her mom's house, and said that I was getting on 81, the first tractor-trailer I came across, I was driving in front of. I made it all the way to Syracuse, didn't see a single tractor-trailer on the road. That's when I knew to get off and go to the VA hospital and get help.
Is that really how simple or as complicated as suicide can really be?
You know, as much as I always thought there was something wrong with me, I would get angry for no reason at all. I would just walk around with this complete hatred for everything. I would go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and then be friendly and nice again and didn't understand why.
Tractor trailer or bust? What kind of mental state does someone have to be in to reach this point?
Couldn't deal with social situations, dining out, crowds, anything else. You get in that room of people and you start feeling panicky. You want to get out of there. And a lot of it's all what we were faced to deal with.
And you know why I understand veteran suicide? Because I understand this, as do many other veterans I know.
After going and seeking help and finding out that there's many others out there like that and getting into some group situations, that was probably the best thing for me. It gets better over time. You got to get through that hurdle.
Suicide is a very, very complicated issue.
Dwayne France weighs in. He is a licensed clinical mental health counselor specializing in veteran mental health.
No one knows the reason for each individual suicide except for the one person that can't tell us. That's the truth. We have veterans, Kevin, much appreciation for sharing those individuals that have been close to the cliff. I call it the cliff, right? You close to the cliff, maybe looked over the cliff, maybe dangled over the cliff, if they had
dangled over the cliff.
Came back.
Really? I mean, I get the euphemism, but that couldn't possibly be a suicide option, could it?
And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I am a complete failure. I'm never going to do any of this. And I came up with my plan. And then, I had my plan. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to go do it.
So what was your plan when you first thought of it?
The plan of it was just kind of to make it look like a hiking accident for me. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy the outdoors. And there's these cliffs not far from my house that aren't exactly guarded. So I was going to basically throw myself off the cliff so it would look kind of like an accident.
That's Eric Packard, an Army veteran. In 2012, he decided that he was done. Done with it all. He drove himself to a secluded spot near his home and decided that he would end his own life.
The scariest part of that is how much it made sense to me at the time. It just when I came to that conclusion, there was this odd peace that just kind of came over to me and it made sense. And I didn't go out and attempt it right away. I kind of stayed around with that. But from that point on, and it was a month later, I could just see it was almost like I was working up my courage to do it. And it really, looking back now, it scares me. But at the time, it almost felt like a relief.
So here you are, you're about to end your life, but yet you're concerned about it making it look like an accident. Why is that?
Because I was hoping that my kids wouldn't have the shame of their dealing with their father who had committed suicide.
So you're trying to spare them.
I was trying to spare them that. But obviously I didn't want to die, because if I really truly did want to die, I would have just gone out and done it. But the fact that I had called some people to say goodbye meant that it was like my final, I need help. I'm not okay.
Do you think things would have turned out different if you wouldn't have had your last goodbye?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be here.
Yeah. The impact that suicide, in particular veteran suicide, has on the survivors, the people left, whether they be friends or family or, whoever. It's like when an IED goes off, right? When we're in Iraq, you have that one event, that explosion happens, right? That bomb, roadside bomb goes off, and it's a single event that happens very, very rapidly, but the fallout from it, right? You've got damage, you've got carnage, you've got loss of life, you've got injury, you've got people that are living, 15, 20, even more years after that, suffering from that very rapid instant of that explosion. And I think suicide is very similar to that. Somebody, for whatever reason, chooses to end their life. It's like that explosion, and that action, it has a ripple effect. It has shrapnel. It's got a concussion wave blast. It goes out and it impacts everything and everyone around it, and loved ones and family members and friends and colleagues, and everyone is everyone is impacted by it. And I know, speaking with you before, you've had this unfortunate impact, this ripple effect hit your life with multiple buddies and comrades of yours that chose to end their life through suicide.
Yep. Yeah. And the thing that sucks about it, the worst is there's never any consoling yourself to why it happened. I don't know if that makes sense. You can't ever get.
Jeff Adamek, retired Army Special Forces, who has seen more than most and barely escaped with his life to tell about it. Having difficulty putting his thoughts together around the loss of so many of his fellow comrades that lost their battle, not in combat, but by their own hands.
When they know someone there's one particular one that just, you should have seen it coming. You know what I mean? Like, really, that was what got me the worst, was that we should have seen it coming.
I still dealt with a lot of the issues that got me down that path in the first place. I just had realized at this point that I really didn't want to die. I didn't want to survive Iraq twice and then die by my own hand. But I wasn't sure how to live.
And it was a perfect storm of situation that was going on, that, when he doesn't show up to work, and a couple guys go over to see why he didn't show up to work, and they find him. And it was, I should have known. And then that's the worst part, is you've got, especially in the military organizations, large groups of people who are struggling with their own mental problems. Not mental problem, but mental struggles, different psychological struggles that are going on for every military member. And then to have the realization that no matter how many anti-suicide briefings you've been through, suicide awareness briefing, you still failed to see the writing on the wall.
Do you feel like that you could have done more?
I don't know if I could have done more, but I definitely feel like I failed to see it coming, and I should have.
Do you ever sit with yourself some days and feel any guilt about that?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
For each of us, there are always two doors. For the veteran who is in a very dark place, the only door they actually see is that suicide door, who we call it. But it's that line between, am I going to live or am I not going to live? Am I going to take my own life, or am I going to try to change and things like that? And I think that's the big thing for a lot of veterans, is they don't realize that choice is there, that the awareness of having that choice, or the fear of the unknown. If I choose that life door, what I know is life sucks and it's really bad. I'm afraid of what's behind that life door, and so I'm not going to walk through it. Whatever's behind the death door is going to be more bearable than the way, this path that I just finished walking for the last year or two. And so, and that's critical, is just being aware of that choice.
How have you been able to
avoid being a statistic?
Yeah.
You know what? I that's a hard question, because I don't know.
The only veteran that I can guarantee will see the sunrise tomorrow morning is me. I'm the only one that I have the ability to make sure gets up tomorrow morning. And the only veteran that you have the power to take care of is you. Now, a lot of people say, oh, okay, so now that's selfish. But no, that gives me a lot of power, and to know that I can step into someone and I can say, I'm going to do all that I can. I'm going to do everything that I can. I'll be up until 3 a.m. My entire world will shrink to where your world is at, and we'll spend as much time as we need to until you're in a better place. But ultimately, that last and final choice to not is on that one individual. And I think that's, a lot of people want to try to go and jump in and save and do everything they can. But there's that last one little final bit, and that's the stuff that the veteran has to do themselves.
We have made being human something to be ashamed of. Does that make sense? You cannot avoid emotional impact of horror and bad situations on you. You are not a fucking robot. You are not an android. The fact that you're able to do the things you do and achieve the things you can achieve is only awesome because you're just a human.
Because you're just a human. Veteran suicide is a growing problem in America today. Are we making a difference? Can we make a difference? I think so. And I try to. But what of that teenage girl that wrote a letter and put it in her locker, that detailed out her plans to take her own life? She wasn't a combat vet that witnessed the horrors of war. She didn't suffer from PTSD or grow up in a bad home or deal with the moral injury of guilt of surviving. So was her suffering less real? Not to her.
Yes,
you were 13 then, right?
12.
12? Is that when it all kind of started?
Yeah, that's when I started having, troubles, saying, my being is not supposed to be here. I shouldn't have been born. And at the time, it was more just, thoughts than it was self-harm. And it was, it's kind of unbelievable that a 12-year-old would even think about this kind of stuff, where I'm, at the peak of preteen, and obviously the hormones and all these kind of things are kicking in, but it's just still kind of unbelievable that even at such a young age I could have these feelings. And it's just...
This is my daughter, Hannah. my only daughter, and this is her story. The story was as hard to tell for her as it was for me to listen, but it was one that we both agreed needed to be told. In a dark place in her life, and her mom and I had no idea. Struggling with her own demons. What thoughts and feelings does someone her age have that could lead down the path of suicide?
Regret and pity, self-pity, hatred towards myself and others, and all these negative feelings that overcame all the positive.
Where do you think all those feelings came from?
Me. It was me. I don't know how to explain it. It was like every time I looked in the mirror, I would see someone not worth living for. I'd see someone that is not supposed to be in the world. Someone that is not worth anything, not even a single dime.
Is there anything anybody in your life could have done to make you feel differently then?
Well, there were people that did help me, but I feel like it was mostly myself that should have done more. Because at this time, I totally given up. I didn't want to help myself, I didn't want to help others, I just didn't want to do anything. And it's something that I should have wanted to do, for myself at least.
Having spent most of my time trying to understand veteran suicide, I wanted to know what it was that brought her to this place.
I don't know, actually. I want to say it's because of bullying, but I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of companions, and everyone treated me nicely, but there's always this feeling where I wasn't wanted. That I wasn't wanted by a lot of people.
And to hear my daughter say that she felt like she wasn't wanted by a lot of people, that's hard to hear. I mean, I wanted her. Her mom did. There were a lot of people around in her life that loved her and cared for her. It hurts to know that she didn't feel that.
It started off where my friends, I had a bad choice of friends, and they encouraged me to do it. And my friends were doing it too. And all surrounded by that negative aura, or whatever you want to call it, made me feel worse and made me want to do it too. It's kind of like when one of your friends are doing drugs and they encourage you to do drugs too, and it's kind of like that. And it progressed much worse than my friends did, because I found it to be a stress reliever, and it made me feel better. And so whenever I had the opportunity to find razors and razor blades from sharpeners or anything of the sort, I would get them. I even stole some from my school. So I had a collection of razor blades that I hid. And I just recently found them and gave them to Mom so she could throw them away. And it was a little tiny pink pouch full of all kinds of razor blades from sharpers to ones you get from box cutters. And there's also some safety pins and little tiny tacks and all those kind of things that were in there. And I treasured them. I don't know why. I just felt like that they were closer to me than anything could have been. And now it really hurts me that I even thought about that. Sorry.
It's okay.
And when I found them, I hid them away in a little tiny chest. When I found them, I couldn't stop crying that I even thought about that kind of thing. And that's something I really regret.
when you first started cutting, it was just a shallow cuts on your arm?
Yeah, it turned from shallow cuts on the top of my forearm, and then when I learned that there were major veins on this side, or I mean, obviously I knew, but I didn't know how deep they were on the inner part of my forearm. I started cutting there, and then that's when I wanted to actually kill myself, so I looked up some ways that I could do it, how to kill myself and easier ways to do it. And it was by cutting down my arm. I don't know how to say it.
Lengthwise?
Yeah. So the blade would get through my veins that would go down like that. I don't know how to explain that so they would understand. But and so that was after I started cutting myself on my legs.
Where at on your legs?
Just on my thighs, and I also cut a lot on like my hip and my inner thighs where some major veins were. Yeah, I also cut my stomach, but not a lot.
Are you surprised at how much you were able to cut yourself before Mom and Ryan noticed?
I mean, I figured you guys would figure it out eventually. I couldn't really wear long sleeves in summer.
Were you hoping that we would catch it?
It was more like, at first, I didn't want you guys to catch it, but then it became such a bad habit that I kind of wanted it to be like a seek for help. But I felt like you guys would hate me for it, and that I'd be unappreciated. But it's just like, because you know how there's like some people that disown their child when they find out they're gay or something? I felt like it would have been like that.
And did you feel like that's what happened when we found out?
Yeah, I really felt like worse. And I felt like really killing myself. Like, I felt like actual commitment to doing it because I thought you guys would like have that kind of conversation with me.
So is that what led to writing that letter? The one that they found in the school?
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about what was in that letter?
But a lot of it was just like me trying to express my feelings on paper, so I didn't have to do it by cutting.
But in that letter, you talked about you actually picked a day. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I picked a day because me and my friends like organized a suicide day.
Oh, it was more than just you? What was gonna happen?
I don't remember, but on a specific day, some of my friends and I were gonna kill each other. Or not kill each other, but kill ourselves. I really tried my hardest to like block that out. I didn't want anyone knowing.
Do you think if that letter wasn't found, you would have gone through with it? Something might have happened to you, or do you think you might have done something more to yourself?
I think I would have continued cutting, but I felt too scared to actually do it deep enough that I would kill myself. I was too scared. But I did have my nights where it didn't really matter anymore, and that all that mattered to me was killing myself.
You started seeing a counselor too and going and talking to them for a while? Without getting into what you talked about there, just has that helped?
Yes, it has.
In what ways?
It's like talking to someone that you don't know and that they don't know you, and conveying all the feelings out that you're afraid to tell someone that actually knows you. I don't know how that makes sense, but
It's easier to talk to them.
Yeah, because they don't know me.
Yeah, there's like no judgment there, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially because she's probably had patients like me before. And just her listening to what I had to say made me feel better. Because some of these things I had a hard time talking to with other people. It's embarrassing, and sometimes on like certain days, like I like look at myself and there's like, why did I have to be born this way? It's gotten better, but there's still things that I wish I could change about myself. Like, you know, my chin. It sticks out way too much. But overall, I feel better about myself. And it's hard to explain how I feel, you know? Because, like, some days are just, like, I mean, most days, actually, I feel great. And I feel like I'm the queen. Duh. And it's just, like, all these weird feelings. And then it's just, like, one random day, could you be like, why?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's common for a lot of people too.
Yeah. So it's been 2 years since this happened, and for the longest time, you didn't want to talk about it with us or with really anybody, and then little by little you kind of opened up, but it still took a long time. Like, I think this is the first time you and I really sat down and actually kind of got into it really deep, right?
Yeah. It's because, like, I felt like, sometimes I do, no offense, but it's like you give off the vibe where everything needs to be perfect, and if I show you my flaws, you'd get angry, and those kind of things. So I'd usually show them to Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want you to get hurt by that.
No.
But it's just
all my soldiers listening right now, they can definitely resonate with that statement.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Nothing that I do intentionally. I think it's just sometimes my nature.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
So why now? Why are you able to talk about it now? What's changed?
I still feel ashamed, but not as much as I used to. And I feel like it's something that should be said.
Why do you think that?
Because when I was quote-unquote recovering, I wouldn't so call it recovering, I don't know. I would listen to, like, podcasts almost, and, like, TED Talks and all that kind of thing that explains, like, someone's background, their depression, their anxiety, their self-harm, and they would talk about, like, their recovery and how they felt and all that kind of stuff, and it made me feel better that I had someone I could relate to. And there's thousands of them out there, so mine won't likely be very out there either. But it just makes me feel better that I'm able to say this out loud in hopes that someone could actually relate. Even though it's just mostly your soldiers.
No, I have a feeling that there'll be a lot more people that will be able to relate to this, because there's a lot of, call it 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-old girls out there that feel this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know it's easy to think at the time that you're the only one going through it, right? And you are.
Yeah.
You're going through it, like,
in my own way. Mm.
Right. But there's so many people going through it in their own way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you think if you were able to listen to, say, a podcast from a 15-year-old like we're doing right now back when you were 12, how much of an impact would that have had on you?
I don't know. I think at the time I would have been, like, not caring at all about what she said.
So do you ever think about what it would be like to cut again? Or you think about suicide?
I don't think about suicide, but there are times where when I get really upset and I go back into those thoughts where it's just like thinking about the release I had when I was cutting. I don't do it again. It grosses me out now, but...
Do you do anything in its place? Do you do anything instead?
I sometimes scratch myself like this.
Yeah.
Like, lightly. But it still gives me, like pain.
Mm-hmm.
Not like pain, but like a... You know, like when you scratch, you usually like feel like your nails.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that lightly. But not enough to do anything.
Yeah.
Or I like bite my nails. Something that makes me feel better.
I know your therapist said something about squeezing like an ice cube in your hands for a long time till it hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, squeezing an ice cube in my hands. And also drawing on my arms with like a marker or something.
Yeah. Does that seem to help?
It did, but now I don't really need it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, drawing on my arms just for fun now. And now that I see this, there's this one time that in class, in math class, in one of my, I think it was like my third block, and I want to say 7th grade. I got called on to answer a question, and I knew what he was talking about, what the teacher was talking about, and I knew this information, I knew these lessons and whatnot, but I still get anxiety, or I used to, somewhat I still do, and I got really bad anxiety, and I felt bad, and my voice was shaking, which made a lot of people laugh in my class, which made me feel, worse, and so I took a pen, like a pen that had like a lot of ink, so like when you put it on like paper, a whole bunch comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really have to like press hard, put it on my skin, and just like draw. And I drew, and then the teacher saw me draw, because I drew a lot of like swirls and like flowers and whatnot. So it took up my whole arm, and I did it on my other arm. It took up the entire arm too. So I started doing like right here, and the teacher saw. And the teacher told me to go outside so I could talk to him. And he said, "You need to stop this right now. You need to go to the nurse's office and get yourself cleaned up." And this teacher had like low patience and got angry easily. And so when he got angered, he would yell. Like, yell. And you could hear it from other classes. You could hear from inside the classroom if he's yelling in the hallway. And it made me feel really bad that I was actually getting yelled at, and that people could hear that I'm getting yelled at, and I broke down. So I told him what was happening, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, and you go back to class," and he like did like the forfeit kind of thing. And when I went in there, I was like still crying, and I felt really bad, and I took a mechanical pencil, and you see that? I had a scar right here, see that?
Mm-hmm.
Took a mechanical pencil and did that in the middle of class. And I didn't say it out loud. I took a mechanical pencil and stabbed myself in the forearm, dug it straight through down, and it made me feel better. It was a stress reliever, and everyone in the classroom saw, because I stabbed myself hard and drug it, and it was bleeding. What was the word I'm looking for? Like,
Profusely.
Profusely, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It was bleeding profusely, and it was all over the place. It was all over the table, and what I did was I unrolled my long sleeve shirt and covered my arm, wiped off the table, and acted like nothing happened. And there were a couple classmates that told the teacher that, yeah, I'm bleeding. She's bleeding. She needs to go to the nurse's office. She's bleeding a lot. And the teacher ignored them. Didn't really care. And it kind of, like, it made me feel better and at the same time worse. Like, better knowing that I didn't have to get in trouble, and worse knowing that the teachers wouldn't even do anything. Like, I didn't want them to do anything for myself, but if anything happened to my classmates, I'd feel bad, you know? It was just... It's kind of outrageous that a teacher get told something like that, and it's just, like, brushing it off.
Yeah. So I know that you still have some scars on your forearms. Do you ever look at them and think about that time in your life?
Well, I think of it as like a, not so much like a trophy, but like what is it called? Like a, you know how like soldiers go get like battle scars and like
battle scars.
Basically, yeah. But it's like, and they like show it off, or some people do, and they're like
war wounds, battle
Yeah.
scars. Yeah.
They're like, this is.
Is it you feel that those scars give you more strength now?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying that all soldiers do this. Obviously, there's some that like feel bad, but I mean, like, there's got to be at least one person that's like, look at my battle wound.
Yeah.
This is what I've earned, and this is
Yeah. You feel like you earned those scars?
earned, not necessarily, but I mean, it's because I did it to myself. It's more
Yeah.
like I'm ashamed, both. Not so proud, but I mean, like, these are the scars of my troubles, my wars, and everything that's been going on in my mind. This is what's happened.
That's you, right?
Yes.
And you
part
come
of
out,
me.
And you come out the other side. So it'll always be part of you, right?
Yes. Although it's not pretty, but it's me.
It's you. Well, tell us about your tattoo that you got and why you got it.
Is it alright to say that I'm 15 and have a tattoo?
Sure. You got parental consent.
It's still legal.
We won't give up the name of the tattoo artist. How's that?
Sure. I don't know his name either.
Okay.
It's hard to explain it. It's like a semicolon that has butterfly wings. And the semicolon and butterfly both have separate meanings, but it's all conjoined to one. The semicolon represents, or the semicolon means that when a sentence can end, then the semicolon is placed there to resume the sentence. So in my case, that when I could have ended my life, I chose not to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I used to say it in a really good way, but now it just doesn't sound normal to me.
No, that sounds good.
And the butterfly is something that ran around on social media for people that like self-harmed. That said, like, draw a butterfly on your wrist, and if you cut the butterfly, then the butterfly is dead. And then it says, like, when your scars have healed, draw another. Then once again, if you cut, the butterfly will die. And it's like an inspirational kind of thing where it's like, butterflies are supposed to be beautiful, and that you don't want to kill you don't want to kill anything beautiful.
you're going to get out of this experience that you've had in your life at such a young age, later in life when you are an adult living on your own, perhaps with a family, married? How has this changed your life or the way you see things?
Well, it's changed that I could actually like have a future. And that, like before, when I had suicidal thoughts, that I didn't imagine myself even having a future at all. But now I'm like studying to become a nurse, and I'm trying to get myself a future that I want. And it's difficult, but it's really achieving.
So if you were to be sitting across the room right now from a 14-year-old or 13-year-old girl that was harming herself and feeling in that bad place in her life, what would you say to her?
Oh God, I actually imagined this a lot of times. Like, there was one time I had a dream that I was talking to myself, like, as I am now, and back when I was there, or back then, and that there's so many things that I could have done, and there's so many things I could say, and that I felt like I couldn't help myself. And I'm sure I could have, but I had that scenario, whatever, in my mind so many times, and most times I just given up on myself. And I couldn't really help myself that much. Because back then I wouldn't really listen to anything. I would just stick to my own thoughts and be my own, So.
Thanks for sharing your story. I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Oh, that took a lot out of me.
Can I have a hug?
Yeah, I don't smell good right now, though.
Oh, it's okay. I don't smell good either.
Oh, no, you don't.
I love you, man.
You were sweating a lot.
Yeah, it's hot in here, right? So I'm in my car on the way to work and thinking about last night when I interviewed Hannah to put together this episode to share her story. And I remember leading up to it, I knew, I asked her a few weeks ago if she'd be willing to be recorded and to share her story, and she said very matter-of-factly, yeah, I want to share my story. And I can still see, though, just a little hint of apprehension in her eyes. And so it was a few days went by, and I'd asked her, "Are you ready?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we wouldn't record, and then like a day or two later, I'd ask her, "Okay, are you ready?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And I'd say, "Okay," and we wouldn't record. And I think it was after our recording last night that I realized I kept kicking that can down the road because I don't think I was ready. I mean, it was all I could do while we were recording to kind of keep it together. I felt her pain and her emotion, and I knew it was going to be hard for her. She knew it was going to be hard for her, but she did it anyway, and I just think that it's very courageous of her to do that. And it was hard to hear. It was hard to know that my little girl, 12 or 13 years old, was in so much pain, and I didn't see it. And how close I got to her almost taking her own life. I
my heart that I wasn't there for her then. I still know what I don't know what I would have done if I'd lost her, and she's only 15 now, but she's one of the strongest people I know ever in my life, and I've met some really strong people. It was a hard story to tell, but I think it's an important story to tell.